Greetings, Tezos Nation. Welcome to another edition of TezTalks Live. I'm Stu from the Tezos Commons. Joining me today is Pascal Brun, co-founder of Acurast. Acurast, for those who might not know, is the platform enabling the development of trustless applications leveraging universal interoperability on a decentralized execution layer across multiple blockchain ecosystems, including right here in the Tezos ecosystem. On today's stream, we'll be giving away 2 awesome Acurast swag bags to 2 of our lucky viewers. If you'd like one of those lucky viewers to be you, keep an ear out for a keyword later on during the stream. And of course, if you have any questions for Pascal that you'd like me to ask, please add them in the chat at any time, and we'll get to as many as we can before we wrap up. Hi, Pascal. How are things in Zug?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. To get the ball rolling, can you tell us a little bit about your background and your personal journey into the exciting world of blockchain technology?
Yeah, sure. So about 13 years back, I started working together with Alessandra and others in the mobile security space. So venturing there in like mobile security frameworks, Android and iOS, building this for Fortune 500 companies, financial institutions, like governmental agencies. So across the board, very like Web2 enterprises, right? And it took us about until 2016 to get into the Web3 space. But this was kind of the time when we saw, okay, the mobile security knowledge that we have gathered in this very kind of enterprise world, we can actually bring this to the Web3 space and really give users a tool into their hands with air gap, essentially a way of how they can utilize a dedicated mobile phone, for example, that becomes then a hardware wallet. And this was kind of the first realization that we can realize this like self-custody approach and really bring in the knowledge that we have in the mobile security space. And through AirGap, we discovered various ecosystems and also Tezos pre-mainnet launch. And that was very fortunate for us as well to kind of look into this amazing ecosystem and then also see where we can add value, right? We then worked throughout after the mainnet launch, obviously on improvements around air gap, but also then saw like areas of like developer toolings with Beacon that we've built, and other areas that we can help out and bring kind of the added value to the ecosystem, like security audits, building smart contracts, and things like that. And actually, through the kind of engagement and challenge around use the DeFi platform, we came across this challenge of how can you bring like off-chain data verifiably onto the Tezos blockchain to be used within use, right, as price feeds, for example. And this was kind of the first cornerstone of Acurast. So we can really say that Acurast has been born out of the Tezos ecosystem.
Great. So I introed Acurast a bit off the top there, but
Yeah.
my description of it as a platform enabling the development of trustless applications and leveraging universal interoperability on a decentralized execution layer is a bit of a mouthful. So I'm wondering, can you break down exactly what Acurast is for us in simple terms that folks like me will be able to understand?
Yes, let's try it at least. I mean, it's definitely a mouthful, and it's also a way of how to convey kind of what Acurast can do because it's so versatile in terms of the use cases, right? So maybe let's kind of break things up a bit. What do we mean by execution layer, for example? So this is one of the kind of integral components of Acurast. Essentially, execution layer means a way of running computation off-chain, so outside of the Tezos blockchain, outside of other ecosystems. So having a way, essentially having an environment for teams and developers to do certain instructions that are then run off-chain. And it's not only run off-chain in like servers that we are hosting, but it's essentially running in a decentralized manner. And what I mean by that is that we also leverage our mobile security knowledge again and say, okay, you know what, these mobile devices that we have are very perfect with their security primitives that they're offering, right? They have like this little hardware chip on them that has like this trusted execution environment, and this specifically can be used for any kind of computation. So what we're doing with Acurast is building this execution layer in a way that we let anyone participate in the ecosystem, essentially, to say, okay, look, I have a dedicated phone that I want to use for this. It's like, for example, a Google Pixel phone. I want to offer this as a computational resource on Acurast, right? So then one of these or all of these devices make up this decentralized execution layer in the end. And the other part that plays a vital role in this like little ecosystem around computation is access to it. So how can we make this accessible without developers having to come up to us first, right? We don't want to be the gatekeeper of this. Like, okay, yeah, you can run computation on this execution layer, you can't, right? That's not really the ideal approach. So that's where the Acurast protocol comes into play, where we have kind of this decentralized orchestrator. So Acurast is outside of Tezos an own layer one protocol that has like the specific focus of being the orchestration between demand for computation that can come from developers, as well as the supply of this like execution layer that is being offered by anyone with these mobile devices. So you have really the way of matching a request with the supply that is out there through this orchestrator. And then in the end, we can really provide a way of how these resources can be accessed completely decentralized and then also trustlessly, right? So you have a way that this through the Acurast console, you can say, okay, this is my application, this is my code that I want to be run on these resources out there. And then like the matching completely happens automatically, and the applications are being run, and you get the response wherever you need it in the end.
That's very interesting. So, presumably, in bringing that idea forward, there was an idea somewhere along the way where there was a problem that needed solving. So, I'm curious if you could tell us what was the problem in the sort of larger blockchain ecosystem that you felt like Acurast could solve.
Yeah, that's a very good question. And it's in the end, everything boils down to like trust, or being able to do something like without trusting in individuals or entities, right? I mean, for use specifically, if you look at the Oracle use case, right? So what it is essentially the blockchain is not aware of data outside of it, right? So you have a price feed for a TES, for example, and a US dollar TES exchange rate that you want to have on chain because you need this for like lending or borrowing or something like that as a central component of your platform. And I mean, what you can do obviously is, I mean, I can post a price onto the smart contract myself. I can have a script that posts this price there, um, or I can have like a few friends of mine running the same script and posting it on there. But in the end, like if the platform builds on top of this, right? You really need to then trust me or my friends that are running this to not really kind of push a wrong price, because if the price point changes drastically, this can have an impact on the platform, right? So what I want to say with that is that bringing data, for example, from off-chain and putting it off-chain is very easy in the end, right? But doing it in a way that you don't have to trust the entity or the person essentially doing it, that is a very hard challenge. And this is what we are doing exactly with Acurast, right? And then it goes further from only data, but giving developers the capability to run essentially off-chain completely computation for like the various use cases of it. So the integral part, that's why we also call it like zero trust application platform. This is like a very central to the whole system, right?
Okay. So as you mentioned, like most of these features are mainly targeted at empowering developers. Can you talk a bit about how developers can use Acurast in the context of
Yeah.
building out their Web 2 and blockchain
Yeah.
applications?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, there are like, maybe quickly to talk about this as well, there are two sides of the picture, right? I've mentioned demand from developers that we are going to quickly dive into. But then there's also the supply that is being brought from the other side, right? So there it's like initially or essentially anyone can join this system if they have the right hardware for it. So they're able to already participate in this system. When we're looking at the use cases and how can like a Web3 project, for example, use this, the cool thing about it is that it's also not us essentially building kind of these walls and saying, okay, this is a use case that you can do on Acurast, and this is something that you can. In the end, it's like everything is based on the technology and cryptography, and it really empowers the developers to say, I'm building a GameFi application. What I need is on-chain. I need a random number that I really can trust that it is random for my outcome of a game, right? So what you can do is you just go to the Acurast console. You say, I want a verifiable randomness, for example, and I want this answer from a given number of these off-chain workers of these what we call Acurast processors, right? But it can also be things like the Oracle use case, right? So you can say, I want to have price feeds because I'm building a DeFi project, for example. I want these 10 price feeds to be pushed into my smart contract. So you can also specify this directly, this like small little app that we call it, and then have this like from 5 of these off-chain workers being brought on chain. And in the end, you know that the data has been fetched from the sources that you've been specifying, like it comes from Coinbase, Binance, whatever. It has been aggregated. There has been median taken out of it and being pushed into the smart contract. And you know this because of the underlying technology, but you also know because you are, or the developer essentially is the one in the driver's seat, completely specifying this in very accessible JavaScript in the end. And so what we can do with this computational platform is then really empower these developers, right, to build use cases that even at the moment we are not really thinking about on the Acurast side, because we are really this piece of infrastructure that should be enablement for the complete ecosystem, and someone can come in and be like, oh, now I'm going to build like a decentralized betting platform because I can get data for the latest sports games essentially brought on chain, right? Or I can dive deeper into things like zero knowledge proofs and things like that, because I can use these resources that sit outside to essentially compute them for me. And the cool thing is as well that this is not really stopping there. So Acurast itself has also the focus and kind of ambition to really breach into the Web2 world, enabling developers in that area as well as enterprises to really leverage in the end what Acurast is in the end, right? We call this zero trust application platform, but it boils down that it's like a decentralized, trustless cloud environment in the end, where you can run these serverless applications. So it's kind of bringing all these things together. Obviously, for us, first the focus is to enable all of the great emerging projects in the Web3 space. But further down the road, it's also about bringing in Web2 essentially, developers and projects and enterprises.
Very cool. So we've had an audience queue come through from Joe's Crypt, who's asking, how does Acurast help Tezos if it's multi-chain? And my understanding is you and the Acurast team have a native Tezos integration upcoming in the very near future. So can you maybe answer Joe Script's question a bit and
Yes.
tell us about the integration and what it means for
Yes.
developers here in Tezos?
Yeah, so this is very important question as well, and also goes towards the solution, right? So we could build this as specifically for Tezos, right? In terms of I build this execution layer that is decentralized, and then only the Tezos ecosystem can profit from this. But that's not really a scalable approach, right? Because in the end, we want to have as much computation available or in this execution layer, right? That's why we said, look, it doesn't matter in the end in which ecosystem the developer sits, but they can all get access to these resources, right? And this is very much important then as well for us, to have a way to give a good user experience in terms of how these resources can be accessed, because in the end the orchestrator that I've mentioned is like this dedicated layer 1 protocol. So how can we make this more accessible, right? And the answer is like the native Tezos integration that you've mentioned, so that we in the end can enable developers to really stay within the Tezos ecosystem, use their Tezos wallet, use Tez USD or any other Tezos native assets to essentially get access to this platform. And this is something that we already have live on Tezos Ghostnet, with kind of this proxy contract where the developer goes with their Tezos wallet to console.acurast.com, logs in with their Tezos wallet and can create already a request there that is then being kind of pushed back. So the answer of this app that you're building, of this computation, is being pushed back onto Tezos smart contracts. And this is on mainnet, something that we are going to launch very, very, very soon. And I'm very excited about that as well, because for us, obviously, being this many years in the Tezos ecosystem, and we really see that this is a very much needed approach for these various use cases in the ecosystem as well, and it can be a huge enablement. So this is definitely also, as I mentioned, the birthplace essentially of the whole solution is within the space. So it's one of the most important ecosystems that we're supporting.
So that rolls in quite well to the next thing I wanted to ask about, as well as another audience queue that's come through. Kand has asked, is Acurast backed by the Tezos Foundation? And I'm wondering if you can combine that with letting us know what stage your team is currently at in the sort of ongoing quest to bring this Tezos integration to market.
Yeah. So in terms of being supported by the Tezos Foundation, we were fortunate enough to receive a grant for an implementation specifically around making it multi-chain. So being able to have this, like we call it level 2 integration, so this native integration in Tezos, that is very much so the case. And like we said initially, all of these things grew out of like this ecosystem. So even if there is no kind of further exploration forwards, we will always be very, very close to the ecosystem itself.
Lovely. And as far as the other part of my question about where the project is currently at, so you mentioned that you've already rolled out an incentivized testnet version of Acurast Tezos integration called Acurast Canary, I believe. So first off, can you tell us about what incentives are available for those who participate?
Yeah, sure. So maybe to clarify on this end, Acurast Canary is the incentivized testnet of this layer 1 protocol. And this is something where we will launch the native Tezos integration on it pretty soon. So it's a kind of, for us, a very good step towards mainnet in the end, to have kind of this incentivized testnet to really test everything that we have built so far, right? All of these components, like the protocol itself, as well as these off-chain execution layer and the orchestrator, all of these things have been built already. And for some part, they're already used in productive environments. For example, youths has been using this for the past 2 years. There are projects like TezTalks, for example, which uses the verifiable randomness. So, but now what we want to achieve with this Canary and the native TezTalks launch is essentially giving developers an easy access point to this execution layer. And for now, if you are willing to join as a processor, so providing getting a dedicated mobile device and providing resources to the network, you can already profit from some rewards. And this is about 250 C-Acu tokens, so of the Acurast Canary network. And there are people out there that have 10 devices that they have bought for very cheap, refurbished them even, and now are essentially providing resources to the network. There is also the Acurast faucet. So if you, as a developer, want to start playing around with it, you can go to console.acurast.com. You can claim there essentially a few tokens, a few C-Acu tokens to start playing around with Acurast.
Okay, and presumably, if you're incentivizing people to do this, it's important on your end as well that happens. So can you tell us why it's important to have Tezos developers participate in this stage of the rollout?
Yeah, for us, it's at the moment, it's very important to see, get of an understanding and feedback where we are with the tooling around Acurast itself, right? How accessible is the access to these resources? How documented is how an integration works, right? So getting really that feedback in terms of usability and accessibility, but also getting an understanding of where the use cases that Tezos developers see and projects in the Tezos space see that they want to use Acurast with, right? So also they're getting that kind of insights and then being able to improve based on that, right? Maybe providing better developer documentation, improving the way of how you interact with it. All of these small little things that make a huge difference are essentially what we need now from all of the whole ecosystem itself, right? So this is kind of a call out to all of the devs there as well, right? Start playing around with it. Like I've said, the native integration will launch very soon. So you can also then interact with your Tezos wallet directly. You don't need to onboard to Acurast. That's also a crucial point for us to really test out that aspect of it, because it's the first ecosystem that is supported in that manner. So where you have this native integration. So all of the feedback, join us on Discord and Telegram, and give us everything that you like and all the things that you dislike about it as well.
So in the interest of making the most of that call out, I know you mentioned a couple of things already, but how can those developers who are interested in participating get involved? Like what information do they need to get started down that path?
Yes, so there are a few introductions on our YouTube channel, for example, of how you get into that. And you can find all of the social links, obviously, on acurast.com. But then there are the developer documentation, which is docs.acurast.com. And in the end, the tool that you will need as a developer or use as a developer, as a matter in fact, like developers and the ones that are providing the resources, is the kind of entry point to Acurast, which is console.acurast.com, where you can really start playing around with it and getting down into the testing and letting us know what's definitely we need to improve in the end.
Perfect. This is all great stuff so far. I'm excited to learn more. But before we get into the nitty gritty, are you ready for the world famous TezTalks lightning round?
I'm born ready,
Just before we do that, I'd like to announce today's keyword for the Acurast swag bags we're giving away today. Today's keyword is !Acurast. Enter the keyword !Acurast in the live stream chat, and Nightbot will randomly select today's winner, who will announce before the end of the stream. Okay, now, Pascal, it is lightning round time. Remember, there are no wrong answers. This is just for fun, so our viewers can get to know you a little bit better.
Perfect.
Are you ready?
Yes, go.
Okay, cats or dogs?
Dogs, definitely.
Pizza or sushi?
Pizza.
Movies or video games?
Before video games, now movies.
Is this real life, or are we in a simulation?
Simulation.
True or false? Money buys happiness.
False.
Name one thing you absolutely want to do before you die.
Hiking on top of the Matterhorn, like the famous mountain on the Toblerone chocolate.
That's an excellent answer. The last place you traveled was?
Italy. Gained weight because the food was so
good. I think everybody does. In 5 words or less, how would your best friend describe you?
Fun and caring. Very boring.
Boring but nice. Those are good things. And finally, what is your favorite thing to do on a rainy day?
Grabbing a book, sitting in front of the fireplace, just kind of zoning out, relaxing.
Excellent. Thank you. Those were excellent answers. This concludes the TezTalks lightning round. Let's get back into it. Now that we've talked about the larger vision for Acurast, the status of your native Tezos integration, how people in the Tezos community can get involved, I'd like to dive a little bit deeper into what exactly this integration will mean for those building and developing here in the Tezos ecosystem. What advantages can Acurast offer to Tezos developers exactly?
So, like I've said, it's this like flexibility, right? That we can offer. So we can really give access to this computational resources that live off chain, and then enable the most various use cases. And I think this is what really excites us as well, is kind of the possibility of things that we are currently thinking of, like these things like bringing off-chain data on-chain, the Oracle use case, verifiable randomness, and all of these kind of very existing use cases. But the cool thing that I really look forward to is people really experimenting with this and really giving them the tool to build completely new applications that were otherwise not possible to build within the Tezos ecosystem. And I think this is very powerful to then have this tool in hand, and then also from our side seeing what really can be built with this in the end. Yeah.
Okay. And why is it so important for this system to be quote unquote trustless, as you put it?
Yeah, I think, like I've initially mentioned, right, you can do all of these things. You can run them on a server. You can really have these interactions with very much trust in it, right? But giving this ability to, as well, I mean, on the one hand, anyone to be able to participate in this network. I mean, this is very cool to see that, right? That you can say, okay, good. I'm getting one of these phones, and then I'm just doing my part, providing resources to this network. But the cool thing for them is as well, they are getting rewarded, right? It's not something that you do necessarily for free. And the kind of possibility about like the whole computational power that can be built up in that way is essentially immense, right? And one point that I really want to touch on as well is kind of the rewards that I've mentioned, or how the system works, right?
Please.
Because in the end, it's kind of a supply and demand problem, right? So if we have a lot of developers that want to build applications and use Acurast, then we need to have the supply of these computational resources, right? And how we are doing this is that if you say, yes, I want to participate and provide resources, you will earn rewards, and it's not us in the end, or the Acurast protocol that will hand out rewards, but it's the other side of the picture, right? So the demand, the developers that are then going to utilize this, that say, okay, I'm willing to pay, I don't know, 100 tests, for example, for getting a verifiable randomness for my NFT, or to run an application that then will kind of empower my Tesla smart contract in the end, right? And it's them that are putting up this reward, and this is then distributed to the off-chain workers, to the processors that are providing these resources. And the cool thing here is it's like on both sides, right? Both sides of the picture can say, I'm only accepting these jobs, these requests for a given amount. If they're like below one test for a job that runs for like 5 days, for example, I'm not going to bother, right? And on the other side, the demands, the developer can say, yes, okay, I this is very important to me. This is like a very crucial part of my project, because I need this data, or I need this result of this computation, or this algorithm that I've written. This needs to come in. So I really need this like every 5 minutes on chain. I really need this every 15 minutes on chain. So that's why the developer then can also define this, right? It can say, okay, this is my application. I need this every 5 minutes to run on 5 of these processors. And then you have kind of the magic of this orchestrator happening and saying, okay, these are the eligible processors on one side, and they can be matched to this request, right? And then everything happens through this protocol automatically. The processors check in, essentially say, okay, I acknowledge, I will run this computation for you and provide you for the next month or year the answers every 5 minutes on chain. And then they are actually doing this, right? The devices itself. And it's not that then the person or entity running these processors need to go and be like, okay, accept, decline. It's everything is automated based on like the beginning parameters. So you have really like this fluid system that can be accessed completely like in a self-service fashion, right? And this is really the cool thing, that we can see that we can empower all of these devs out there for these various use cases in the end.
That's interesting. So sort of a micro economy around supply and demand of
yes,
computation.
Yeah. And it's really then the economic question that also comes into play, right? If there is not enough supply, so if we have only 10 processors or 50 processors that offer their computational resources, access to this will be more scarce, right? So developers need to essentially reward their request more, otherwise it will not be picked up and executed, right?
I see.
Then on the other hand, if you have 1,000 processors, but there's not that much request on the developer side, right? Then you essentially have the other way around, that you can get access to these resources for very, very cheap in the end. And I think this is kind of very much also at the heart of like having this decentralized system, right? Where anyone can jump in and be like, okay, cool, I can earn rewards now, and I'm going to participate in this system, because I know that there is so many requests from the other sides that are coming in, right?
Cool. So we've had another audience queue come through, and it ties in with my next question as well. Paul asked, what made you choose Tezos to build on? I know that you touched on that a bit earlier, but that ties in with what I wanted to ask, which was, why was developing a Tezos integration a priority that you wanted to focus on right now?
I think Tezos chose us. No, but I mean, to be honest, I've mentioned the journey that we have had in the blockchain space, and definitely the Tezos ecosystem was like at the center of it all. And it was also true kind of the challenges that we saw within the ecosystem when we looked at this issue for use, for example, right? There were integrations announced that would potentially solve part of it. I mean, Chainlink, for example, and others that would focus on the Oracle problem. And we really saw that there is no way to actually do this in production, right? That's why we as well had to find a way to really solve this for this use platform. I mean, there are solutions out there at the moment that are being used as well by other platforms. I know that Colibri uses the Harbinger Oracle for certain price feeds. The thing was that for use, they needed a lot of more flexibility. They are now supporting gold, the gold price, for example, right? So they really need to have the flexibility that they themselves can say, okay, these are the essentially price points that I need on chain. And it really grew out from that needs that we really saw. Okay, this is not something that use specifically faces in that regard, and should exist as a bespoke solution for this platform, but we can really build this out in terms of giving access to this on one hand, right? In a way where not we are the ones that are controlling it, like I've mentioned, to this orchestrator. And simultaneously, we also realized it's not only specifically for like price points for off-chain data that can be brought on-chain, but these this execution layer with this computation that is available has so much more in terms of the use cases that can be built up on it. So this is really the journey that's essentially without a Tezos ecosystem, this would not be alive, essentially, right? So Acurast wouldn't be there without the Tezos ecosystem.
Okay, and as somebody who's been actively involved in developing integrations across multiple blockchain ecosystems, and it sounds like somebody who's very familiar with Tezos and has been operating in this space for a while, what's your impression of the Tezos ecosystem in 2023? Like, is there anything that sticks out to you in terms of the Tezos ecosystem as opposed to others that you've dipped your toes into?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, and it's always interesting to explore kind of outside of a bubble that in the end every one of us ends up in, right? You always can consume like a given amount of information each day, so you will not you will certainly form this kind of understanding. And what I really think about the Tezos ecosystem is that we have all of the tooling very much in place, and this has been there for like the past 2 years. And I think we saw kind of this emergence, especially as well as in the NFT space, right? When we saw things like TC Colors and then Higenunk and afterwards also Object, essentially starting to use all of these tools that are there, right? The Lego and Smart Pi, smart contract languages, as well as others, being able to really build contracts that follow a given framework. There were standards formed back then, as well as things like Taquito that allowed web developers to bring everything together, and stuff like Beacon that then connected the wallets to the dApps, right? So it's very interesting to see that a lot of these primitives still lack in other ecosystems. So in terms from an infrastructure perspective, and I think really Acurast also goes into that area, being able to be an enablement for the ecosystem itself, to have this interaction with the real world and interaction with other resources, to really bring everything together. And this is what I have been seeing as well, is sometimes very much lacking in terms of kind of the tools that you can give developers to really build solutions that in the end are also being adopted, right? So that really can be used, and in a way that it's not so cumbersome that no one really understands it and needs an hour introduction for it to get into it and be very, very obscure. So I think from that viewpoint, the Tezos ecosystem is definitely in a very healthy part at the moment and in a very healthy state. And I mean, obviously, there are challenging things around if you look at the broader Web3 market in general, with all of the recent kind of developments around crypto prices and things like that. Then the adoption is obviously lower at these times. But I really think also in that regard, Tezos can really shine with things like focusing on NFT, building out further the DeFi aspect of it, and having this way of evolving built into the core of Tezos is a huge value proposition that you don't really see often outside of that as well.
That's a great answer, and I completely agree. And speaking of tooling, we have another question from the audience. Yeah. Artego asks, is there a scenario where Acurast uses smart rollups?
So we probably will and most likely enable smart rollups. So from the other side around, not us using it, but we enabling them. And this is kind of integral part as well. So we really want to have this like orchestrator, this central component of Acurast to really be purpose built for this specific use case, right? And obviously, if smart rollups were around when we started working on the Acurast project about 1.5 years ago, then definitely this would have been a very big contender to see how we can actually do this. But really, what I want to say with this and really bring back the point that Acurast is also tooling for effectively smart rollups coming up, because it's so flexible. It can support also EVM smart rollups, then essentially be built on Tezos.
Yeah, it's interesting as you're talking about Acurast. I keep hearing a lot of the same things that I hear when people talk about rollups.
Yes, yeah, and that's like a scaling solution in the end as well, right? Rollups itself, they offer just a form of computation or essentially block space, if you want to talk it about that. And what we really can do with this execution layer that then can also be called like as a rollup in the end is really interface with other areas of the world itself. Yeah.
Excellent. We could go on, and I'm sure you could too.
Happy to.
We're coming to the end here, and before we close off, I need to announce the winners of the Acurast swag bags we're giving away today. Today's winners are Aurora Rodriguez and Artego. Congratulations.
You will get a nice hat and a shirt and some other things as well.
Awesome.
So
congratulations to both of you. To claim your prizes, just email us at social@tezoscommons.org. We'll request a screenshot for verification that you're the account owner and get your shiny new swag bags over to you just as quick as we can. For those who missed out today, we remind you that there are awesome giveaways to be found frequently here on the TezTalks live stream, so keep tuning in. If you'd like to get in touch with us, our social media contacts can be found at tezoscommons.org/TezTalks. We would love to hear from you. Pascal, thanks so much for joining us today. It's always awesome to speak to the folks working hard to integrate cool products like Acurast here in the Tezos ecosystem.
Thanks for having me.
Is there anything else you'd like to mention before we sign off here?
I mean, just kind of the shout out that I've already did, but I will gladly do again.
The floor is yours.
Please join us by helping us to improve and test Acurast by going to console.acurast.com. You can claim some tokens there and start to participate. And there are social channels if you have questions on Discord and Telegram. The links are on acurast.com. come join us there. Also, discuss with us about all of the things around Tezos and Acurast. And last but not least, as well, like we've touched on, we will launch the native Tezos integration, so that gives every one of you the ability to use your Tezos wallet, your Tezos native assets, Tez UUSD, and all of the other nice assets that are out there to start interacting with the Acurast protocol and get access to this vast amount of computation that is out there and just waiting there for you to be used for all of these cool new use cases and kicking off completely new things. Also, the next cycle, for example, with all of these things we haven't thought of before. Yeah, so
Fantastic.
do check that out and let us know all of the feedback that you have.
Absolutely. To everyone out there in Tezos land, thanks for joining us on the TezTalks live stream. I'm Stu from the Tezos Commons, and our awesome guest has been Pascal Brun, co-founder of Acurast. Now let's go earn some Acurast testnet rewards.
Do that. Thanks for having me.